Let's do crypto now and see what's happening. So we see crypto has recovered, fluctuating between 104,000 and 103,000. For this afternoon, it's 103,699.79 after it gained 0.85% in the last 24 hours. So looking comfortable compared to, some weeks ago. Ethereum is 2,607. Also went up more than 1%. For the others, I guess, Cardano, TRX and all, they follow, but we still have a bit of red, a handful of it at this time. But let's find out what our guests think about this at this time. We do have, of course, some headlines that we're supposed to follow up, some news that's making. Let's get into that so we can get his opinion on all of the issues. So we start with the very first one is Coinbase facing up to $400 million hits from cyber attack. So once again, we're talking about cyber attack in the crypto space, and it's one of the world's biggest cryptocurrency firm. That's Coinbase. They say that a recent cyber attack will cost up to $400 million. That's investors' fund. The firm says it was contacted by hackers who claim to have gained access to customer information obtained by making payment to Coinbase contractors and employees. They said this in a blog post. They said that criminals have gained access to less than 1% of their customer data. Well, that's risky, of course, which they then use to impersonate the firm and trick people. So perhaps you were not talking to Coinbase, even though you thought you were talking to. The group then demanded $20 million from Coinbase to keep it quiet. But it says it refused to pay the bribe and instead promised to pay back every person who got scammed. That's from Coinbase. The risk of cyber attack there looking even more real. And then we see in Brazil's fintech company, Meluz, has become the first in the country to include Bitcoin in its treasury, buying more than 28.4 million in Bitcoin. That's a huge demand on Bitcoin. And then that's, I guess, could keep that green color going for a bit. The move marks a shift in the firm's financial strategy, with the company now focusing on increasing its Bitcoin holdings through corporate structures and capital management. The company confirmed that the bank is using this strategy not just to deal with inflation and currency risks, but because it's now one of its main ways of doing business. Do we see a day when Bitcoin becomes a hedge, just like gold, or competing with gold? We'll see. Now, SWIFT has confirmed that Wells Fargo and many banks are having interest in using Ripple XRP. So it's not just Bitcoin that seems to be getting attention. In a recent tweet, they said between a recent crypto enthusiast known as Shane and a researcher named as Smoke, it drew attention to two separate mentions of blockchain-related technologies on Swift's website. Of course, Swift, the platform that's used for international transactions. Well, so this was a conversation that shows that banks may be taking interest in not just Bitcoin, but also in XRP. Then blockchain gaming hits 2025 low as daily users numbers slide. That's also another story. Blockchain gaming, so user activity declined sharply in April, dipping below 5 million daily active wallets for the first time this year, and daily active users in blockchain gaming declined by 10% in April 2025, dropping to 4.8. Now let's find out what Solomon Amunde thinks about all of this. Hi, Solomon. Good afternoon and welcome to the program. Hello, Solomon.
Good afternoon,
Can you hear me? Okay, great.
Good afternoon, Amy.
Yeah, great. So, how soon do you think that Bitcoin or cryptocurrency generally can be a competition with gold, when investors are looking for a hedge against inflation and those macroeconomic headwinds?
I think right now it's already competing with gold. As of now, the only challenge investors have is Bitcoin's stability. Gold seems to be more stable, whereas Bitcoin gives more return on investment and is actually way more volatile than gold. But looking at long-term projections, definitely Bitcoin would give investors more return than gold. So I think right now, Bitcoin is already proving itself a strong competitor with gold. The only difference is, yeah, gold still has a huge market capitalization compared to Bitcoin as of now. I think it's still 10 times higher in terms of market capitalization compared to Bitcoin,
But
which also
Solomon,
shows.
yeah, but Solomon, even from what you've said, don't you think that when investors are looking for a hedge, they'll still go to gold? When they are looking for investments with returns, when you also look at the volatility, which you mentioned, that's when they'll look for Bitcoin. When they're looking for a hedge, they just want to shield against those headwinds.
Yeah. For now, most investors they would want to hedge with gold, but for the few investors that have a deeper understanding of Bitcoin and its future, and knowing very well that it's just starting, the future of Bitcoin is just starting. We're still at the foundational point. Those investors would want to risk it with Bitcoin. I mean, right now we can see different countries and hedge funds moving funds to Bitcoin. We also saw Abu Dhabi too. One of their funds they also invested in Bitcoin recently, over $400 million. So there are stuffs that these people have seen, and they know that this is the best time to position themselves. Obviously,
Yeah, but when you also see stories like the one from Coinbase, cyber attack and hacks, I mean, look at $400 million. That's a lot of money, and that could also scare, businesses and institutional investors who want to take a hedge there.
the truth of the matter is, these investors they know that these hacks also happen in traditional finance. The only difference is we don't see it in the news in traditional finance, but in blockchain you can't hide it because everyone has access to the open ledger and anyone can see that hack without waiting for the media to tell us that something like that happened or waiting for the platform to air the news. So that's why most times we have these stuffs happening or looks like they're happening all the time in the blockchain space, lots of hacks and all. It's because whenever the funds are moving on chain, people know. So if Binance, for example, is hacked today, before Binance even knows that they are hacked, a random person can know about it. If Coinbase is hacked today, it's a similar thing. They can see the funds moving on chain. So that's why it's looking like it's not safe. But it doesn't mean these same things don't happen in traditional finance. The difference is we can't know when it happens in traditional finance unless the banks or the companies involved tells us.
Yeah, except it gets as big as what we had in CBEX, which was all over the news, I guess.
Yep.
All right, when we look at the scene in Nigeria, we see a lot of institutional investors now adopting. We see the government becoming more friendly to the cryptocurrency space. I guess Nigeria is also following suit. We are not being left out of this trend.
Well, we hope to not be left out from this whole trend, but from the government, we haven't really seen much. We haven't seen efforts from the government. We have not seen commitment from the government, financial commitment. We haven't seen that. As little as a commitment as little as Nigeria spends $50 million to buy Bitcoin or to create a Bitcoin reserve fund, we have not seen any form of commitment to show that, yes, the government has skin in this game. But yeah, we see some stuff relating to taxing. The government would tax crypto traders and stuff like that. That's what we see. But we have not seen support. We have not really seen that
Now,
support
but
yet.
don't you think that the ISA, as a form of regulating, is also a form of commitment, that would win confidence, not just from the government, but also from potential investors?
Yeah, but I do believe that before you start trying to tax so much, you should try to also support the growth of the ecosystem, especially when it is still very, very young. You should try to give them the most support. If possible, even give them tax waivers for the next 3, 4 years. That's also a huge support. But we haven't seen that from the government. Like we haven't, basically. We've seen some frameworks that they've come up with to help regulate the space and things like that. Or some other deep financial commitments, we haven't seen it yet.
All right. Well, we do hope to see it soon. But do you see stability now with the price of Bitcoin? It's been around 103, 104 for a couple of days now. Do you think that's where we'll be for a bit, or do you see a movement soon?
Well, actually, I expect Bitcoin to dump to at least $98,000, just so that we can get the desired traction we need and momentum for us to create a new all-time high. It will be quite impressive if we don't go above $100,000 again, but I'm not so certain that I would see that happen. I still believe we might still just go a bit below $100,000 before making new all-time high. But generally, I strongly believe that this year Bitcoin will make a new all-time high.
Okay. All right. We'll see how that goes. Solomon Amunde, thank you so much for your time and your views.
Thank you very much, Ini.